Today we're going to start the first part of our grilling series. Now this series is going to cover some basics on grilling, and this time we're going to be using a gas grill. Now there's an argument, do you use gas or do you use charcoal? My belief is use gas every time. You can always put charcoal on that and get the same flavor. Gas, you can control the heat better. Now I have here on a pan some wood chips. As you can see, good size wood chips. They're all about 3/8 to 1/2 inch thick, and that's what you're looking for, big ones. That way they smolder for a long time. If you notice, I just put them on an old sheet pan. It was a throw-out item, so I decided to use it. They also make cast iron items for this. You can put charcoal on there if you want that flavor. I'm using mesquite wood today. We're going to light this thing up and do some basic grilling. Hello, welcome back to Texas Cooking. Today we are going to begin a series of videos, and it's going to be based on grilling and how to smoke on the grill and to use it as a smoker or just for open grilling or for closed grilling, also for baking, all kinds of things. Your outdoor grill can be very, very versatile, and I'm going to show you just how versatile they can be. But today we're going to start with this stuff. These are just big old wood chunks. This is mesquite wood. Now the problem I have when I want to do smoking on my grill is the chunks that I want to use are usually these little itty bitty chips, and they burn up very quickly, even in a smoker box. So what I prefer to do is to take the larger cooking chunks. They sell these right next to the charcoal, and I like to take these and break them down into little wedges or to little chips about 1/2 inch thick, about just like that, or slightly thinner, and these are what I like to lay on a pan in my grill and to use that for smoking. It works really well. So let me show you how I like to do this. I take a simple chisel, and I hope you have one. If not, I'm sorry if you don't, and place it on there so you get a chunk just about the size that you want. Give it a good smack. There we go. Here we are. Perfect chip. Now when you're doing this, if you do it in the kitchen, make sure you use a sacrificial board, a good sharp chisel, a nice hammer, and that's all you need to produce these kinds of chips that will smoke for a good 20 to 30 minutes without giving out on you. Alright, now I'm going to sit here and break up a whole bunch of this because I plan to do some smoking today. I'm going to be smoking some ribs. Now that's a bit noisy. Okay, looks like ribs are on the way. I'll show you what that's like in a little bit. This will be about all kinds of grilling, so it's not just about cooking ribs. There's going to be a lot of different clips from many different days on this. So if you would just watch the whole video, you'll find out all kinds of neat stuff. I have now finished chopping up all of the wood that I need. I've got a lot of chips here for smoking, and I'm going to go through pretty much that entire batch just to smoke one set of ribs. Okay, so always have plenty of these available. Let me set this aside. Whenever you're going to use a grill for smoking, you need to protect your meat so that it won't get overcooked. And the problem is when you're using a grill, the meat is in very close contact with the heat, and it's generally very high heat. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to use this broiling pan like this. We're going to add some water to the bottom of it, and we're going to put our ribs right up on top of this. That's going to allow some steam to come up under those ribs to keep them tender at the same time that we're smoking them. Okay, so we're preventing the drippings from hitting the fire so that it doesn't flare up on you and burn the meat, and we're also adding moisture to the meat while we smoke it. So this works great doing it on the grill this way. We'll move right into our next step. I'm going to take this out of the wrapper, put it on there, and go downstairs. We'll show you what it's like to set up your grill. Now, I've opened up my package. I'm going to turn on a little bit of cool water. Pull these ribs right out of here. There we go. Give them a quick rinse. I am not going to do any trimming. I will do no trimming on these ribs. I want all of that fat intact as I cook it. Put that right up on that broiling pan. See that small end? Let's take it and just roll it, fold it under. It'll cook just fine like that. Now, that's one of the reasons I like using gloves. You can just slip out of those. We're ready to season this. All I'm going to do here, we just want to put on a little bit of salt and pepper, nothing more than that. There we go. Take our salt. We are going to have wonderful pork ribs. Now, these are not your baby back ribs. These are your pork spare ribs right here. And it's a decent sized rack. It's not huge. You have the pepper and salt. The salt brings out a little bit of flavor in the meat. The pepper helps to add a little bit of zest to it. But mostly what we're looking for is the flavor of the smoke. So we're going to focus on smoking from here on out. Okay, we're out here with the grill, and I want to show you how I set this up. I like to use a pan about like so. Something simple, a small piece of metal down here just to hold my wood chips on. Go ahead and line that out. And I like to fill it up because I like plenty of smoke when I do this. And you want a short pan, and you're going to want this thickness of chips for one reason. You want that grate to fit over the top of it. See there? Now, I have my grill set up for smoking. Whenever you're going to be just smoking steaks, or if you're going to do long smoking, if you do this exact same setup, you'll have good success. Next thing we're going to do, I need to turn on gas to my grill. My flame's on. There we go. Now, I'm going to start that at high flame, and when the smoke starts, I'm going to lower it to a medium high and let it just continue to smoke for hours. And I'm going to turn these ribs every once in a while. There's our ribs. Wide side towards the heat. I'm going to turn that center burner down just a little bit. Okay. We have our ribs ready to start. Now this is going to take a few hours. Keep an eye on it. Check it about every 15-20 minutes. Alright, this is beautiful. It's exactly what we're looking for. Now if you get any flaming back there, you might want to keep some water handy and just simply drizzle water down over the flaming wood, and that'll put that out. If that happens, just slightly lower your heat. Right now these are doing real good, and we're about 20 minutes in. As you see, I'm producing good smoke. We're just going to let it go. I am now checking my grill. It's been about 40 minutes, and it's been about 10 minutes too long, really. My wood is no longer smoking, and it's cooked down pretty good. The meat is starting to turn a little bit of red on the outside, and that's normal. That's due to the smoke itself. We're exuding some fat here and some other meat juices. What I want to do is to turn this over and also to change my wood out. So I'm going to turn this sideways. Let me grab that grill, pull it back. There we go. Now, the wood, check it, see if I like it. Looks pretty good. I'm just going to add some more to it. We're in Dallas, so we get a lot of flights overhead. If you got really long tongs, that's great for this. Mine are short, so I have to keep my hand in there for a very short period of time, or I'll get burned. Right now my grill's been about 350 degrees. Now, it's going to raise my grate up a little bit. That's not going to hurt anything. Don't worry about that, okay? Here's where you need two tongs. You're going to turn your meat. Now, the reason I don't just prop the meat up and allow the smoke to get all the way around it is simple. If I do that, then I won't get the moisture from down below up into the meat. See how moist this looks? That's from that. And I want to keep that going on. So I'm also going to add a little more water to my broiling pan. That way we keep plenty of steam up in here. And we're going to let this keep on cooking, okay? Just that simple. Isn't that nice? It's been about another 30 minutes. Now you can kind of see the progression on this, and we're not going to show a clip for the cooking of all of this. I just wanted to show you how we will handle turning the meat, and I'll rotate it again right now. We'll cook the other side, and I'm just going to do this over and over each time I change my wood. And that's about every 30 minutes. Okay, that wood's got cooked down real nice. Time to put a little more in there. I just keep this cycle going until we have some beautifully smoked ribs. And my neighbors playing their music in the background. Beautiful. I'm so very Texas. There we are. So good luck to you on your slow smoke. Remember, yes, you can use the grill for smoking. Later I'm going to show you how to test this meat. You're going to see how the bones start to protrude when it's getting cooked. That way you know when it's getting done. In the meantime, we're going to keep it on medium-high and just let it slowly do its thing. Right about 350 degrees is real good. 325 to 375 is your bracket. We have now pulled these ribs in off of the grill, and it has been a total of about 3 hours worth of cooking. They stayed on there. The end ribs here are going to be a little bit on the dry side, a bit overdone. Unfortunately, that's a consequence of this type of cooking. Now, I wanted to show you though. See how the ribs are sticking out from the meat now, how they protrude? It's very distinct. You have a good ½ inch or better sticking out right there, the width of my finger on each one. And another way of knowing if they're done or not is you can take the tongs or a fork and pull back on the meat. If you notice there, it just separates from the bone clean very easily. Okay, this is done when it's like that. The other thing is when it's smoking, look at the red on it. All over the outside there's this red. And what this is, the tannins in the meat react with the meat itself and cause it to turn, or the tannins in the wood, I'm sorry, they react with the meat itself and cause it to turn red. And it gives it this beautiful layer. And if you're slow smoking something really long like a brisket, and it's going to be out there, you know, for 6 or 8 hours, that red can run 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch down into the meat. So this is a layer you want to look for if you're actually talking about real barbecue. Real barbecue is going to have that red layer every single time, and if it doesn't, then it isn't real. Now there is a bone, if you ever go to slicing this, just so you know, that runs right back here. So if you're going to cut your ribs like this, go ahead and chop this piece out first. And that bone, and it's a wide bone also, so take out a good wide chunk. And that'll keep that out of your way when you go to cutting, and you'll get good even cuts on your ribs. They'll be beautiful and very tasty. Put this with a good sauce, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, on to our next grilling method. Welcome back to Texas Cooking. This is the next segment that we are doing on grilling. Now, grilling a steak is really a pretty simple thing to do. However, a lot of people seem to make a lot of mistakes on this. They either overcook them, don't cook them right, get uneven cooking, a lot of little things like that. Now, as you've seen the way I prepared the grill, frequently I will put wood chips out onto a pan underneath the cooking grate, just on top of the burners, and that way those cooking chips will come up to temperature and provide good smoke. I like to grill with a closed cover, and this is very unusual. Grilling is usually done open cover. Now, when you grill, you put your steaks down onto the grill grate, and we'll pretend this plate is a grill, and it'll start sizzling. Sometimes the fat being rendered out, dropping below, will cause a flare-up or flames. If it starts to burn and you get that nasty smell of fat burning, you might want to take that steak, and this will usually happen after about 2 minutes of cooking, and pull it back slightly and give it a little bit of a turn, just like so. Not all the way at 90, but just a little bit. This will provide a cross-hatching action on the grill grate marks that it leaves on the steak, and it actually looks quite lovely. It'll also pull it back far enough from the flame to allow you to put a little bit of water over the flame, thereby extinguishing it. Be careful when you do that, because at first that water hitting it will cause the flame to shoot up high, and it will get quite robust. Now, when we're going to prepare a steak for grilling, there's a lot of different steaks you can use. In this case, I used a simple strip steak, which would be like a New York strip, that I've cut in half to make 2 more fillet-sized steaks. Why didn't I buy a fillet? Well, because I wanted to get something with a little more fat content in it, like this steak has. But I went ahead and got a good thick cut. A thick cut like this is important to getting a nice medium or medium rare center, depending on whichever you like. I'm going to take my grill up to a high temperature, about 450 to 550 degrees, before I put my meat down on it. Usually about the 450 range, the chips start to smoke well. After they get smoking really well and that grate is really fiery hot, that's when I put the meat on there. I reduce my temperature to a medium, and I'll leave the meat in place unless the fat starts to burn, and allow it to cook for about 4 minutes on each side. So 4 minutes first side, 4 minutes the second side. After 8 minutes of cooking, I have, usually on a thickness like this, which is about 1 1/4 to 1.5 inches thick, I'll usually have around a medium on my cook. And that's on my particular grill. Yours may be a little bit different. Now, to season this guy, I'm going to keep it simple. We're just going to go with just a little bit of salt and pepper. And once these are all cooked up, this is going to be beautiful. You're going to see a nice reddish colored center. We're going to have a good, memorable steak there. Okay. Well, I'll season the other side, then we'll take a look at it on the grill. My wood is smoking good now. This will provide a good flavored steak. I want to turn my temperature down to a medium heat. The grate is good and hot. I should get a good sizzling sound. Sure enough. Now I'm going to check these in about 2 minutes just to make sure there's no flare-ups. Otherwise, we're going to leave the lid down so that it gets good smoke. Now I have some flare-ups. I'm going to pull that meat back. There we go. A little bit of burning fat and some burning wood. That's just simple water. Dash it on with your fingers. Yeah, those are looking good. Have a nice crosshatch. They need just about 1.5 minutes more on this side, and then I'm going to turn them. Okay, I think it's time we turn that steak over. A little bit dark on some of those corners, and I took about 1 minute too long. Now we have finished giving our steaks a good cook with a bit of smoke on them. Let's go ahead and open that up. Let's take a look inside there. Now we were looking for a nice medium. And what do we have there? That's a nice medium. Even though I was slightly over on one edge, which was this one, you can notice the pink doesn't reach quite to the edge. That's a slight imperfection, but it's only a slight one. The rest of it's a good, nice medium pink all the way throughout. So, that's what we're looking for. We got good grill marks on that steak. That's how you do your grilling, folks. It's really simple, and you get a good smoky flavor with this one. Now this series is going to cover some basics on grilling, and this time we're going to be using a gas grill. Now there's an argument, do you use gas or do you use charcoal? My belief is use gas every time. You can always put charcoal on that and get the same flavor. Gas, you can control the heat better. Now, I have here on a pan some wood chips. As you can see, good size wood chips. They're all about 3/8 to 1/2 inch thick, and that's what you're looking for, big ones. That way they smolder for a long time. If you notice, I just put them on an old sheet pan. It was a throw-out item, so I decided to use it. They also make cast iron items for this. You can put charcoal on there if you want that flavor. I'm using mesquite wood today. We're going to light this thing up and do some basic grilling. Now what we're looking for on this is to bring that temperature up to about 400, 450 to begin with, and we'll see some good smoking coming out of our grill. Now this is a cross between grilling and smoking, so it's a great way to do your meats, and it comes out great every time. Okay, we're back down here now. I have some water just in case my chips flare up. We're getting a little smoke out of the back of the grill. You have to watch out. You don't want your chips to turn into flames. And I got a little bit of burning over there, so water on that. And I just did that with my finger. So now we want to keep them smoky but not flaming. Now I want to turn down the flame on this from a high to a medium. And then when I cook, I want to cook closed lid. Alright, I've reduced my heat. It's smoking good. And I'm going to be putting meat up on this now. Now when you first put your meat on your grill, excuse me, let me get down on this. When you first put meat on that grill, let's go ahead and listen to it sizzle. You want that searing effect. If you're not getting that searing effect, it's not going to release well. It's not going to give you grill marks. From the bad handling of the camera. I have no cameraman today. Well, I'm going to use fresh tongs next time I come down, and that'll be about 7 to 8 minutes. I have returned with my meat. It's been grilling. It took about 18 minutes really on this to grill this up just right. Now I'm going to make some cross cuts. Just like that, and that's cutting along the grain is what it is, because the grain runs this direction. Now, I wanted to then turn these pieces of meat this way. I wanted to show you this so you'll know the right way to cut this. Cut across the grain just like so. Okay? And I like to make little strips that are about a 1/2 inch wide. There we are. Tajitas. See how we have just a slight amount of light pink in the center left here? You had a good charring on the outside. It was a good hot grill. I had a lot of smoke out there. The smoky flavor in this is outstanding. So, I'll get these cut and we're going to have our fajita dinner. Hey, I am preparing some smoking chips. I'm going to be smoking a barbecue today. It's going to be Texas barbecue. This is the real deal, okay? And we are fanatical about this, okay? My chips have to be just the right size so that they will smoke for a long time. The ones that you can buy in little bags will often be just little pieces like this. And these don't perform very well for smoking, okay? A smoking chip needs to be robust. This will work fine also, but unfortunately in my grill, A, it doesn't fit, and B, I find that this doesn't produce as good and continuous and same quality of smoke when it's a large one due to the charring that occurs. I want the chip to put out as much smoke without getting overly charred. Once it's charred, the smoke kind of changes flavor a bit. So I am going to sit here with a chisel and a hammer, and yes, I'm going to prepare every single one of my smoking chips. Okay, that's how picky we are. There we go. Look at that. Perfect smoking chips. So, try this technique if you want to be real picky about this. Now, what we're going to do today is going to be cooking on a grill. I want to show you how to make Texas barbecue on a grill. Okay, let's get on to what we use for barbecue in Texas. Now, in Texas, the cut of choice for barbecue is the brisket. Now this one has been picked up still in the original wrapper from the original processing plant. Okay, and it will also be a graded wrapper. It'll, in this case, it's a USDA choice. Choice makes a really good brisket for barbecuing. You don't have to go high-end meat to have good brisket. Okay, so the idea behind barbecuing is to cook real slow, and when you cook real slow on a brisket, they come out absolutely magnificent. Okay, but there's some things you have to remember. You got to keep the meat moist when you're cooking it, and you have to feed it lots of smoke when you're cooking it. And then there's this band of fat on the back here. We're going to get into that in just a little bit after I show you how I prep my grill. Then show you how I prep my meat. There's an argument over whether or not you keep this band of fat or not. I believe keeping a portion of it is absolutely appropriate. But do I keep all of it? Not really. I just don't need that much fat up in there. However, some people, they really like that extra fat and they want to have it in their meal, in their food. And I must admit, and this is an absolute honest truth, when it comes to the fat and the meat combined in a chopped beef brisket sandwich that's been smoked, you have to have the fat in there, okay? So if that's what you're going for, is that chopped sandwich, go ahead and leave all of that fat. If not, if you're going to slice it and put it on a plate, maybe a little sauce on it, make it look pretty, I recommend removing a lot of that so that it looks a little bit cleaner. It also allows more of the smoke to penetrate into the meat. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's go down and take a look at the grill, and I'll show you how you set up your grill to do smoking. Here's our little bit about how to prepare your grill to do some smoking. Now, this is a simple and pretty basic 4-burner gas grill. It uses liquid propane gas. This works really well, believe it or not. You do not have to have charcoal in order to get good smoke on a grill. This is just an old pan that I had that was out of a toaster oven. You can use anything you want. They make cast iron pots that are designed to hold the chips, but I find they're kind of small for the size chips that I use. Now, earlier I was breaking up these chips, as you saw. They smoke really well. They last just the right amount of time. You'll need to replace these about every 20 to 30 minutes depending on your heat. There we go. Just lined out my pan with them. Next thing we're going to do is get that heated up, bring that brisket out on a pan, and then I'm going to set that pan in here. And it'll be a pan that's designed for broiling, but it works really good for this technique. So it's very important to do that step. Keep plenty of extra chips on hand. You're going to be replacing them regularly. I'm using mesquite, okay, a very Texas flavor, because it's a wood that's very, very common in this state, and it's wonderful for cooking. So give this a try. Now, on the 4-burner here, I'm going to have 2 burners going to begin with to get things heated up, and then I will have 1 burner on low and maybe turn off the second one, just depending on how well it's producing smoke today. It's about 65 degrees out here. It's perfect weather for this. Temperature does make a difference on this game. Okay, I have just lit this up. I'm going to set the flames on high and get this wood smoldering. Okay, once it's smoldering, but you don't want it actually flaming or burning, so you're going to have a little pot of water out here to sprinkle over that if they do start to flame. You just want them to gently smolder. These can be pre-soaked, and that will help reduce the flaming problem. I usually keep it under control pretty well, and it works well for me this way. So we're going to go get our meat prepped. By that time, this is going to be ready. Okay, let's get that meat prepped real quick. Make sure you have your knives good and sharp. That's always very important for any job like this. You never want to have to fight a knife and run the risk of it slipping and cutting you or stabbing you. So if they're extremely sharp, then you don't have as much of that risk. Okay? They slide easily through whatever you're cutting. Now, I'm going to rinse this off real quick as I take it out of this wrap. That way I've got something a little easier to work with and slightly less bloody. Does the blood bother me? Not really. I just don't want it running all over. After I wash that, I'm going to give it just a moment to drain here. I'm going to rub some of that water off. There we go. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, removing the fat. Now I'm going to be using this for slicing, so I want to be able to take some of this fat out of here. And what I'm going to do is just simply slip my blade up under it, in between it and the meat, and gently work through that. Okay? I'm catching just a little bit of meat there, so I'm going to raise it up just slightly. And I want to catch just the fat. There we go. I want to cut that off a band at a time. And what I'm trying to do is expose the meat. And the reason I'm trying to expose the meat is because I want my smoke that I'm going to be working so hard to produce to penetrate into red meat, into the muscle tissue, not into this fatty layer. The fatty layer is wonderful for certain types of barbecue. It's great if you're doing chopped barbecue, okay? And it should be left in place if you're going to do chopped barbecue. But if you're mostly just doing a sliced beef brisket, a Texas brisket, then please go ahead and remove some of that fat. And don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid if you connect with a little bit of meat. It's not going to hurt anything. This is a very stringy meat, and there's a lot of fat up inside of it. So for flavoring the meat, there's going to be plenty of that. And it lends itself absolutely perfect to long cooking. And that's what makes for good barbecue. Barbecue is about getting smoke penetration. And so you're going to want to do long cooking duration. Now, down here, I'm trying to keep a little more of the fat in place. Because as I mentioned, I do want some fat. The thinner end on a brisket doesn't have as much fat down in the meat. So I want to keep just some of it back here. And that way, it will work on that meat in melting down into it and flavoring it. It also helps it to be a little bit more tender. Okay, gotta be careful. A little deep on it there. There we are. Should have just sort of a little mottled effect. There we go. Now, I have a little bit of muscle that runs through here, and I'm going to keep it, but there's also a large wedge of fat that runs along this side. And I'm going to remove a lot of that. Again, I'm trying to get more contact into the meat with the smoke. And that's the reason I'm actually doing this one step, which some people in Texas, they would find this step appalling. Oh, he just ruined it, they would say. And that's because they want that extra fat in there. That's part of their diet, and that's part of what they want. However, I'm going to go for a little healthier version on this one. Okay. Once this cooks up, it'll have a beautiful appearance to it. This is actually the underside of this, but it's going to be cooking with this side facing up for periods of time. More of that. There we go. Now I've got most of the fat off of the large side here. Kept some of it down on the small end there, where we need it. It really helps that meat, also helps protect it from overcooking. Now, on top here we have this connective tissue. Some people like to call that silver skin, okay, but you know, when you get right down to it, just a nasty connective tissue. Okay? Go ahead and remove that sucker. Now, sometimes these will pull right off. Other times you might just want to run a blade gently underneath it to remove that. As I mentioned before, sharp blade means that you're not fighting anything. And if you're not fighting anything, that you're handling it a lot more safe. Look at that. Take a lot of that out in one big chunk. If I get that out of there, again, that's going to help reduce or increase the penetration of the smoke in the meat. The silver skin there, that thin fleshy layer, really inhibits smoke penetration. So I try to remove as much of it as I can. Now, smoke penetration, you can see it when it happens. When we're cooking this, the roast is going to cook up beautifully, okay? there is going to be a red band when I cut into this at the end of this cooking. And I'm going to show you on video how that red band looks on the edge, and you're always going to know how to identify barbecue that was actually smoked. Okay? When the wood cooks, it releases the oils in itself, and those are called tannins. And those tannins then get down into the food, and they will color the food. If it's meat, it colors it red because it reacts with the meat itself. So we're going to show you that. I'm going to show you how to do this little barbecuing technique, and it's real simple. Now our next step, we're going to have to put this guy on a pan. The pan I'm going to use is a large broiling pan. It's a deep broiling pan. I'm going to put water in it. Now you're going to have water in this guy. If not, you're going to have a mess. It's going to get dry. It's not going to be any good. Transfer that. I'm just going to salt it, and then it's ready to go out for smoking. And I will bet that the amount of time it took for this to be shown, my grill is now hot and smoky. If you notice I'm using plenty of salt, don't be afraid of that. It makes a nice crust on it. Okay, I had to break this for a moment to clean my hands so I could get this pepper grinder. Now, I'm also going to put a fairly good dose of pepper on this. I'm not going to worry about the other side until I rotate it. We're going to start the smoking on the top layer. About halfway through, I'm going to rotate it for just a little while, get plenty of smoke down into the bottom of it, and we're going to turn it again and finish it up on top. This takes hours to do, okay? You're going to be cooking at a low temperature. All you're trying to do is just produce smoke and low heat, and so this takes hours to cook properly. Well, I'll see you down at the grill. Okay, we're down at the grill. Let's take our pan. We'll put it over here on this side where there's no heat, with the fat end towards the heat, the thick end, the head here. Now, you see the amount of smoke we're getting. It's a nice good amount. It's going to fill this really well and smoke that perfectly. I just have to turn that temperature down to low and let this thing do its job at about 250. Well, we have come down. It's about an hour and a half into cooking. This is the third time I'm changing out these chips. Be ready for this. Like I said before, you're going to be changing these out on a regular basis every 20 to 30 minutes, really. Now, make sure you also check the water in your pan. So as that water gets low, your meat can dry out. If your meat starts to look dry on the end, cover it with a little foil. It's going to need about 3 times that amount of water. So, just keep up the smoking. I turned it over already. I've cooked the top side to start with. It got nice and red. Now I'm cooking this side, letting some of that fat render down into the meat, and also getting some of that smoke down into the meat. So as soon as I change the wood again, I'll be flipping it one more time. Alright, I've just pulled the brisket off of the fire outside and brought it in. If you'll notice, it has formed a nice reddish color on the edges. This is exactly what we're looking for. Once I cut this, we're going to show you later, that red actually penetrates deep into the meat, usually anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, depending on how long you've been smoking it. And today, well, we've been smoking this thing for a little over 4 hours. So I should have a real good band of smoke deep in the meat, giving it a great flavor. I need to know if it's fork tender though, and frankly it most certainly is not. See how it hangs onto that fork? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into this roasting pan. I want to put it in the oven covered with just a little water on the bottom of it so it keeps it nice and moist, and it will finish roasting it in there, and that'll make it nice and tender. So I've got the smoky flavor. Now I just need a little roasting time, and this baby is going to be ready to go.